Welcome to the Prescott Lab podcast, not just theory, practical science for everyone. I'm Dr. Jonathan Prescott, a physician and integrative medicine researcher at the Ravenshade Institute for Human Health. For more than 3 decades, I've sat across from men struggling with the same quiet frustrations, sleepless nights, weak streams, the nagging sense of never fully emptying the bladder. Gentlemen, if you're over 60 and waking 2, 3, even 4 times a night just to use the bathroom, don't shrug it off as just aging. That's not the whole truth. What you're experiencing is your prostate sending out signals, and if you listen closely, you can change the story. Now, before we go deeper, let me clear up something important. Some of you might notice that these videos often circle back to the same themes: urination problems, nighttime awakenings, prostate health, even questions about sexual habits. You're right, the topics repeat, and that's intentional. Why? Because in medicine, repetition is not boredom, it's reinforcement. The truth is simple: men forget, men minimize, men delay. A lesson heard once may fade, but a lesson repeated can save a life. Think of it like exercise. You don't lift weights once and expect lifelong strength. You repeat, you return, you refine, and slowly your body transforms. The same applies to your prostate health. By revisiting these core habits again and again, we anchor the changes that truly matter. And yes, each time we meet, I bring in new studies, fresh insights, or a different way to explain an old truth so the message sinks in deeper. So if you ever think, "Doc, I've heard this before," you're right. And that's a good thing. It means you're being reminded to act not someday, but today. Before we continue, leave a simple comment below, even just, "Yes, that's me." Because when you share, you give another man the courage to face his own struggle. And together, we prove that no one has to fight this in silence. Now let's sit together as doctor and friend and uncover why your prostate behaves the way it does and what you can start doing tonight to ease the pressure, reclaim your sleep, and protect your health. Mistake #1: holding urine too long. Gentlemen, let me start with a simple question. How many times in your life have you told yourself, "I'll hold it, I'll wait until I get home, it's fine"? Every man has done it. In the car, in a meeting, at the grocery store. We think we're being tough, disciplined, polite. But here's the truth. Every time you resist the urge to urinate, you're putting both your bladder and your prostate under unnecessary pressure. Think of your bladder like a balloon. Fill it gently, release it gently, and it serves you faithfully for decades. But overfill it, stretch it again and again, and the structure begins to weaken. The walls thin, the nerves misfire, and your prostate, sitting just beneath that balloon, gets squeezed like a knot in the pipe. The result: difficulty starting your stream, that frustrating feeling of never empty, and yes, those multiple trips at night that rob you of rest. In my clinic, I'll never forget Carl, a 67-year-old retired mechanic. He'd tell me, "Doc, I just didn't want to bother people when we were out. I'd hold it until I got home." After years of this habit, his bladder had stretched so far it couldn't contract properly. He wasn't just losing sleep, he was losing confidence. Once we worked on breaking the habit and retraining his bladder, his nights began to change. He could sleep for 6 hours straight without waking, something he hadn't done in over a decade. Now, let's be clear, holding it once in a while isn't going to destroy your bladder, but making it your pattern, that's where the damage accumulates. In fact, urological studies show that chronic, delayed voiding is directly linked with higher risk of urinary retention and prostate irritation. It's not dramatic, it's math. Pressure builds, tissue strains, nerves weaken. So what's the adjustment? Simple but powerful. When you feel the urge, respect it. Excuse yourself, step away. Go, you're not being rude, you're protecting your body's natural rhythm. By emptying your bladder when it asks, you relieve the burden on your prostate, you reduce nighttime awakenings, and you set yourself up for healthier years ahead. Gentlemen, ignoring the urge to urinate may seem like a small mistake, but over time, it's one of the most damaging. Your body isn't nagging you, it's warning you. And the sooner you listen, the sooner you regain control. Daily habit #1: smart water intake. Now that we've exposed the hidden danger of holding it in, let's talk about the flip side, how the simple act of drinking water done right can protect your prostate and give you back your nights. Most men over 60 think the problem is too much water. Doc, if I drink less, I won't have to get up at night, right? Wrong. What really matters isn't just how much water you drink, but when and how you drink it. Here's the science. As we age, our natural sense of thirst weakens. By the time you feel thirsty, you're already mildly dehydrated. That means many older men drink far too little during the day and then out of habit or convenience gulp down a glass or two at dinner. The bladder overfills at night, the prostate gets irritated, and you're up at 2 a.m., then 4 a.m., then again at 5:30. I once had a patient, Richard, 72, who proudly told me, "Doc, I stopped drinking water after lunch. That way I won't wake up at night." But what happened? His urine became so concentrated it actually irritated his bladder lining, making him wake more often, not less. A large study of over 2,000 men showed something remarkable. Those who spaced their water intake evenly throughout the day, steady sips in the morning, steady sips in the afternoon, and then reduced intake in the evening, cut their nighttime bathroom trips by 41%. 41, that's the power of timing. So here's the practical fix. Start your morning with a glass of water even before your coffee. Keep a small bottle with you and sip through the day instead of gulping at once. After 7 p.m., slow it down. A few small sips if you're thirsty, but avoid filling your tank before bed. Gentlemen, this isn't just about comfort. It's about respecting your kidneys, easing the strain on your bladder, and giving your prostate a calmer environment to do its job. Smart water intake is one of the simplest daily habits you can adopt, and yet the difference it makes, fewer awakenings, better sleep, more energy, is profound. Remember, it's not about drinking more. It's about drinking smarter. Mistake #2, ignoring prostate signals. Gentlemen, let me tell you something I've learned after decades in medicine. The body never lies. It always tells the truth quietly, persistently, and often long before disaster strikes. But here's the mistake too many men make. They ignore the whispers until they turn into screams. When it comes to the prostate, those whispers are subtle. A slightly weaker stream, a sudden urge that catches you off guard. That hollow, unfinished feeling after you urinate, like your bladder is holding onto something it should have released. These aren't random annoyances. They are your prostate tapping you on the shoulder, saying, "Friend, pay attention." But what do most men do? They shrug, they laugh it off. They say to their wives, "It's just old age, don't worry about me." They convince themselves it's nothing, or they are too embarrassed to bring it up. And that silence, that stubborn silence, is one of the most dangerous mistakes you can make. Let me share a story. James, 64, came to see me after months of problems. He told me, "Doc, I didn't want to talk about it. I thought it was embarrassing, maybe even shameful." He ignored the weak flow, the nightly awakenings, the constant urge. By the time he walked into my office, his prostate had enlarged so much it was blocking his bladder. His kidneys were under strain, his nights were wrecked, and his confidence was in pieces. What could have been addressed with small changes months earlier now required medical intervention. And James isn't alone. Urological research shows that ignoring lower urinary tract symptoms is linked not just to discomfort, but to chronic urinary retention, recurrent bladder infections, kidney damage, and higher risk of aggressive prostate disease. Put plainly, when you ignore the signals, you raise the stakes. Think of it like this: your car's oil light flickers on. Do you cover it with tape and hope the engine keeps running? No, you act, you service, you protect the machine. Your body is infinitely more valuable than any machine. Why treat it with less respect? Now I know why men stay silent. Fear, embarrassment, that old belief that real men tough it out. But let me tell you straight, ignoring prostate signals isn't toughness, it's neglect. And neglect always costs more in the end. Gentlemen, ask yourself honestly, have you noticed changes in your stream? Do you wake up more often at night than you used to? Do you feel the urge come sooner, stronger, or more unpredictably than before? If so, don't dismiss it. Don't delay. These are not random inconveniences. They are your body's language, its way of saying, act now while the problem is still small. And here's the hopeful part. When men listen early, when they pay attention to these signals, solutions are often simple. Adjusting daily habits, improving hydration timing, walking after meals. Even managing stress, these small steps can relieve pressure, restore sleep, and protect long-term health. But none of that can happen if you don't first acknowledge the whispers. So my advice is this: don't wait for the scream. Don't wait until you're forced into the hospital or staring down surgery. Listen now, take note, speak up. Gentlemen, your prostate isn't your enemy, it's your messenger. And ignoring the messenger has never once made the message go away. Daily habit #2, light walks after meals. Gentlemen, we've just talked about the danger of ignoring signals, those quiet whispers your prostate sends when it's under stress. Now let's balance the scale with something hopeful, something simple, something you can begin tonight after dinner, the habit of light walking after meals. At first glance, it sounds almost too small to matter. A walk, really, doc? How can that change anything for my prostate? But here's the surprising truth. Science shows that those 10 to 15 minutes of gentle movement after eating can reshape the entire environment in which your prostate lives. Let me explain. When you sit down after a big meal, blood rushes to your digestive system, but your pelvis, where your prostate resides, often gets sluggish, stagnant. Imagine a river that suddenly slows to a crawl. The water becomes murky, debris builds up, and life struggles. That's what poor circulation does to the tissues around your prostate. Without steady blood flow, inflammation lingers, cells don't heal as they should, and the gland itself remains irritated. Now picture that same river after a gentle current picks up again. Fresh water flushes through, oxygen arrives, waste is carried away. That's exactly what a light walk provides: circulation, oxygen delivery, and metabolic reset. In fact, a study out of the University of Sao Paulo followed men who walked just 10–15 minutes after meals. Their risk of bothersome prostate symptoms dropped by 35% compared to men who stayed seated. 35%, that's not chance, that's biology. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Post-meal walking doesn't just help your prostate, it helps your blood sugar. Men who walk after eating stabilize their glucose more efficiently. Why does this matter? Because diabetes and insulin resistance are silent drivers of prostate enlargement. High sugar fuels inflammation. Inflammation fuels growth. Control the sugar, you ease the fire. I remember Peter, 71, who came to me constantly frustrated by his nighttime awakenings. He thought it was hopeless. Doc, my prostate's just too far gone. But when we worked through his daily routine, I discovered he would eat a heavy dinner, collapse into his armchair, and stay there until bed. I challenged him: Peter, just try this, 10 minutes. After every dinner, nothing fast, nothing fancy, just walk. 2 months later, he returned, a smile on his face. Doc, I'm down from 4 bathroom trips a night to 1. My wife thinks it's a miracle. I think it's the walk. And he was right. Gentlemen, the power of this habit lies in its simplicity. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need a treadmill. All you need is your body and a bit of space. Walk around the block, stroll through your yard, even pace in your living room if the weather is bad. The point is movement, gentle, consistent, right after eating. So tonight, and when you push back from the dinner table, don't sink straight into the chair. Stand, breathe, and take those few steps. Feel the circulation wake up. Imagine your prostate being bathed in fresh blood, inflammation washed away like silt in a stream. That's not imagination, that's physiology. Remember this: the small things you repeat daily often outweigh the grand things you do once in a while. A single long run once a month won't save your prostate, but a light walk after every meal, that can. Gentlemen, your prostate is asking not for punishment, not for extremes, but for rhythm. Movement is medicine. And walking, the oldest, simplest form of movement, is one of the best gifts you can give it. Gentlemen, we've talked about walking, water, listening to signals, all grounded in daily life. But now let's shift into territory many men are curious about yet too embarrassed to ask their doctor. What role does ejaculation really play in prostate health? For decades, this has been whispered in locker rooms, joked about in bars, and ignored in doctors' offices. Some men believe it's harmful, others believe it's protective. So let's cut through the myths and look at the science. In 2016, researchers at Harvard University followed more than 31,000 men over a period of almost 20 years. That's not a small survey, that's one of the largest cohort studies in men's health. And what they discovered shocked even the scientists. Men who ejaculated 21 or more times per month had a 33% lower risk of prostate cancer compared to those who ejaculated only 4 to 7 times a month. 33%. That's not a tiny benefit. That's the difference between high risk and protection. And Harvard isn't alone. A research group in Australia found almost identical results. Frequent ejaculation correlated with lower risk of prostate disease. Now, the natural question is, why? What is happening inside the body that makes this true? Here's the answer. Your prostate produces fluid every single day. If that fluid sits stagnant, it can become a breeding ground for inflammation, toxins, and old cells. Over time, this buildup irritates the tissue and increases the chance of cellular damage, the very conditions that can spark cancer. But regular ejaculation acts like a natural flush. It clears out the old, refreshes the environment, and allows new, healthy fluid to circulate. Think of it as spring cleaning for your prostate. You wouldn't leave stagnant water in a pond and expect it to stay fresh. Why expect your prostate to function any differently? And the benefits don't stop there. Ejaculation reduces stress, supports sleep, balances hormones, and helps the nervous system relax. It's not just about the gland itself, it's about the entire ecosystem of a man's health. I'll never forget a patient, Leonard, 68, who leaned across the desk in embarrassment and whispered, "Doc, I need to ask, am I hurting myself if I keep up a regular sex life?" His wife was still active and so was he, but shame held him back. When I showed him the Harvard data, his shoulders dropped in relief. He said, "So I don't have to feel guilty." I smiled, "No, Leonard, you don't. In fact, you may be protecting yourself." Now, let me be clear, this doesn't mean frequency alone is the golden key. We'll talk in the next section about balance because overdoing anything, even something beneficial, has consequences. But what Harvard taught us is this: ejaculation is not your enemy. In moderation, it is your ally. Gentlemen, science has replaced superstition here. Masturbation and sexual release, when kept within healthy bounds, can be part of your body's natural defense system. Ignore the old taboos, ignore the shame, and listen instead to the data. Your prostate is not a silent victim of age. It is an active participant in your health, and one of the ways it stays clean and strong is through regular release. The balance point: when masturbation helps when it hurts. Gentlemen, after hearing the Harvard study, some of you may be thinking, well then, more must be better. If 21 times a month lowers my risk, maybe 40 will turn me into Superman. Slow down, this is where wisdom enters the picture. Yes, regular ejaculation is beneficial, but like all things in health, there's a line between medicine and misuse. Too little and you risk stagnation. Too much and you risk depletion. The truth lies in balance. Here's what I've seen in my clinic: men who keep a moderate rhythm once every few days, sometimes daily when they feel strong, often enjoy the benefits without harm. They sleep better, they feel calmer, their prostate is healthier. But I've also seen men who turn ejaculation into compulsion. They chase it not out of desire, but out of habit, boredom, or even addiction. The result? fatigue, pelvic tension, irritability, and in some cases nerve compression in the lower spine. These men don't walk away energized, they walk away drained. Their body whispers enough, but they don't listen. Let me tell you about Thomas, 62. He came in complaining of constant pelvic discomfort, low back pain, and fatigue. At first, he thought it was arthritis, but after a candid conversation, he admitted he was masturbating 4 to 5 times a day, almost compulsively. It wasn't pleasure anymore, it was escape. Once he cut back, his pain subsided, his energy returned, and his relationship with his wife actually improved. Moderation didn't weaken him, it restored him. Science backs this up. The prostate benefits most from consistency, not from extremes. Regular release clears toxins and reduces inflammation, but excessive ejaculation can trigger oxidative stress in the pelvic nerves, leaving you more vulnerable to fatigue and pain. It's like exercise. Lifting weights 3 times a week builds strength, but lifting all day, every day will break you down. So how do you know if you've crossed the line? Ask yourself. After release, do I feel calm and recharged, or do I feel empty and exhausted? Do I reach for it because I choose to or because I feel compelled to? Your body is an honest guide. If it feels drained, it is drained. Gentlemen, here's the takeaway. Masturbation and sex are not enemies of your prostate. In balance, they are allies. But balance means listening, not to your urges, not to your fears, but to your energy. If your body says yes, enjoy. If it says no, rest. Remember this, the goal is not numbers, it's health. Not chasing a quota, but protecting your dignity, your strength, and your future. So the Harvard study gave us the green light, but balance tells us how fast to drive. And it's that balance, not excess, not abstinence, that carries you safely forward. Daily habit #3, diet and sleep as silent healers. Gentlemen, let's shift gears. We've talked about water, walking, and even intimacy. But now we arrive at 2 of the most underrated healers in a man's life, what you eat and how you sleep. Most men underestimate their power. They'll focus on medication, supplements, procedures, but they forget that the most consistent medicine comes from the plate in front of them and the hours they spend in bed. Diet, the fuel that shapes your prostate. Let's begin with diet. The foods you choose every day are either stoking inflammation or calming it, and your prostate feels every bite. Take lycopene, for example, a potent antioxidant found in tomatoes, watermelon, and guava. Study after study has shown that men who regularly consume lycopene-rich foods have up to a 28% lower risk of prostate cancer. Why? Because lycopene neutralizes free radicals, unstable molecules that damage cells and fuel abnormal growth. In simple terms, it cleans up the sparks before they start a fire. Then there are cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage. These are not just rabbit food, they are biochemical warriors. They contain sulforaphanes, compounds that help your liver detoxify harmful substances and keep your prostate cells resilient. And let's not forget zinc. Found in pumpkin seeds, seafood, and nuts, zinc is critical for hormone balance and prostate integrity. Men low in zinc often face higher rates of prostate enlargement and sexual dysfunction. A handful of pumpkin seeds a day can quietly support your hormones in ways pills cannot. I think of Harold, 70, who used to rely on frozen meals and processed meats. His PSA levels were climbing. Once we reworked his diet, fresh vegetables, zinc-rich foods, tomatoes, and less sugar, his energy rebounded, his inflammation markers dropped, and his nights improved. It wasn't overnight, but within months his prostate calmed. Now here's the warning, processed meats, high sugar, and excessive dairy do the opposite. They ignite inflammation, disrupt hormone balance, and push the prostate toward disease. So your plate is a battlefield, choose wisely. Sleep, the repair shop of the body. Now let's talk sleep. Too many men treat it as optional. Doc, I only need 5 hours, they brag, but inside their body pays the price. During deep sleep, your body produces melatonin and growth hormone, powerful anti-inflammatory agents that repair prostate tissue, restore cells, and quiet inflammation. Miss out on deep sleep and what rises instead? Cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol fuels inflammation and lowers testosterone, a double strike against your prostate. A 10-year study of over 400 men found that those with chronic sleep disturbances were twice as likely to develop aggressive prostate cancer. Twice, that's not a coincidence. That's biology sounding the alarm. So what can you do? Create a sleep-friendly environment, dark, quiet, cool. Turn off screens an hour before bed, blue light blocks melatonin. Keep a rhythm, sleep and wake at the same time daily. Avoid heavy meals, caffeine, and alcohol late in the evening. Add relaxation rituals, deep breathing, meditation, or even that gentle evening walk we talked about earlier. One of my patients, Walter, 66, thought poor sleep was just a nuisance. But after coaching him to prioritize rest, lights out by 10:30, no phone in the bedroom, he not only slept through the night, but his urinary symptoms lessened dramatically. His body finally had the chance to repair itself. The synergy of diet and sleep. Diet and sleep are not separate. They reinforce each other. Eat poorly and you inflame your body, making deep sleep harder. Sleep poorly and you crave sugar and processed foods, further inflaming the prostate. But align both nutrient-rich foods by day, restorative sleep by night, and you build a shield around your prostate that no pill can fully replicate. Gentlemen, these aren't small lifestyle tips, they are pillars. They are the ground your prostate stands on. Respect them and you give yourself years of protection. Neglect them and no supplement will save you. So tonight, when you put down your fork and prepare for bed, remember, your prostate is listening. Feed it wisely, rest it deeply, and it will serve you far longer than you imagine. Mistake #3, overdoing frequency. Gentlemen, earlier we looked at the Harvard truth, how regular ejaculation can protect your prostate. But now we need to face the other side of the equation when frequency tips into excess, because what heals in balance can harm in excess. I've seen it countless times in my clinic. A man learns that release has benefits, and he decides that if some is good, then more must be better. What was once natural, rhythmic, and energizing turns into something mechanical, compulsive, and draining. Mark, 63, is one man I'll never forget. He came to me worried about constant fatigue, cloudy focus, and a dull ache in his pelvis. He feared the worst, cancer, maybe even kidney disease. But after a quiet conversation, he admitted he was masturbating 4 to 6 times a day. It wasn't pleasure anymore, it was compulsion. Each session left him weaker, not stronger. He wasn't protecting his prostate, he was exhausting his nervous system. Here's the science. Ejaculation in moderation floods the body with dopamine and oxytocin, chemicals that relax nerves, lower stress, and calm inflammation. But when repeated excessively, the nervous system becomes overstimulated. Dopamine signaling dulls, fatigue lingers, and the pelvic muscles actually tighten instead of relax. Over time, the tissues strain, nerves compress, and the very area you're trying to protect begins to ache. Think of your body like a bank account. Each ejaculation is a withdrawal. If you also make deposits, good food, rest, exercise, sleep, the account remains healthy. But constant withdrawals without deposits, the account empties, and the same men who thought they were protecting their prostate end up with fatigue, irritability, and worsening urinary symptoms. And here's the cruel irony. Too much release can actually intensify the very problems you're trying to escape: nighttime awakenings, weak streams, pelvic discomfort. Instead of being medicine, it becomes another form of stress. Gentlemen, this mistake doesn't come from malice, it comes from misunderstanding. You hear about the Harvard study and you think, if 21 times a month helps, then 40 must be twice as good. But your body doesn't follow that math. It follows rhythm. It heals with balance, not extremes. So how do you know if you've crossed the line? Ask yourself two questions. After release, do I feel calm, restored, and centered, or do I feel hollow and drained? Do I choose intimacy because I desire it or because I feel compelled to chase it? Your answers will tell you more than any number can. Now, before we move on, let me pause and bring in a couple of voices from you, the men who have left comments on earlier episodes. One viewer asked, Doc, if Harvard says 21 times a month lowers risk, won't 40 cut it in half again? My answer, no. The study was observational, not prescriptive. The 21 wasn't a quota, it was a marker of balance. Doubling it doesn't double the benefit, it risks tipping you into depletion. Another man wrote, Doc, sometimes after sex I feel more tired, even irritable. Is that just old age? And I'll say this clearly, no, fatigue after intimacy is not inevitable with age. If intimacy leaves you refreshed, that's healthy. But if it leaves you worse than before, your body is signaling overload. That's when you step back, recover, and restore rhythm. I share these questions because they prove something important. You are not alone. The doubts you carry are the same doubts men across the world whisper, and when you bring them into the light, you give another man the courage to face his own. So remember, gentlemen, masturbation isn't your enemy, but excess is. Balance is your ally. If it leaves you stronger, it's helping. If it leaves you weaker, it's harming. That's the line. And with that truth in mind, we arrive at the final word, the bigger picture of your prostate, your future, and the life you still have the power to shape. Gentlemen, we've walked through a journey together, from the silent mistakes men often make to the daily habits that bring healing. And if you remember only one thing from this entire podcast, let it be this: your prostate is not your enemy, it's your messenger. Those nighttime awakenings, that weak stream, that nagging pressure, they are not punishments. They are signals, your body whispering, pay attention, protect me, act now. And when you listen, when you respond with small, steady changes, you not only protect your prostate, you reclaim your dignity, your energy, your sleep, your future. Think about what we've uncovered. Holding urine too long stretches and weakens the system. Smart water intake reduces nighttime awakenings by over 40%. Walking after meals improves circulation and lowers inflammation. The Harvard study showed that regular ejaculation lowers prostate cancer risk by 33%. But balance matters. Overdoing it turns medicine into poison. Diet and sleep, those silent healers, protect your cells, balance your hormones, and guard you from disease. None of these require a prescription. None of them are out of reach. They are habits you can begin today, tonight even, and small habits repeated daily stack into powerful protection. I've watched countless men make these changes, and I've seen the results: deeper sleep, fewer bathroom trips, stronger energy, and above all, renewed confidence. You're never too old to change the story. But here's the choice only you can make. Will you keep ignoring the whispers, or will you finally listen? Because the future of your prostate and the quality of your life depends not on luck, not on fate, but on what you do next. So here's my invitation. Tonight, pay attention. Drink smart, walk lightly, rest deeply. Honor balance in intimacy. Fill your plate with foods that heal. And above all, never ignore the signals, because they are not your downfall, they are your chance to turn things around. Gentlemen, your prostate is not broken, and neither are you. If this message resonated with you, do one thing for me: leave a comment below, even just a simple "yes, that's me" or a question you've been carrying. Because when you share, you don't just help yourself. You help another man realize he's not alone in this struggle. And if you found value here, hit that like button and subscribe. Not for me, but so the algorithm carries this conversation to the men who need it most. And together, we can build a community where no man suffers in silence and where health is not just managed but reclaimed. So take heart, take action, and take care of yourself. Because the final word is this: your prostate is in your hands, and so is your future.